Okay, so today is Tuesday, and this is typically back-end squad, but it's going to be another joint session, and probably the last joint session. Now, what we're going to do today is going to be a lot more back-end focused than front-end. Yes, there was a lot more front-end focused than back-end. Today we're going to do more back-end because the tweaks we're going to do to the front-end aren't that much more. But I have been thinking of adding one more chart to the front end. And that will also involve back-end work. But our targets or our goal today is to be able to get this data and these visualizations for specific date ranges, right? I mean, it's great to be able to see the entire period, but it's also very useful to be able to specify a slice in time, right, that you want to see the data for. And that way the chart is a lot more, it's actually easier to consume. Okay, so we're going to do that, and partly because there's such a variation between the data that if you look at the chart, I don't know why I closed it. Okay. All right. So there's such a variation in the data that if you look at this chart and we come here, there's actually data here and there's changes happening here. But the difference between this high point and this low point is so great that you almost can't see it. It looks like nothing happened. And then things started happening. So this looks like things started happening in, February, kind of. But in reality, there was a lot of changes happening in January. They were just small relative to the big picture. So if you could do a slice of time and look at the January date range alone, for example, right, that might show you more information. So we're going to add a couple of date widgets here for selecting a date range. And we're going to make the backend capable of handling that. A couple of other things that I want to touch on the backend is the script that we wrote to ingest the CSV into the database. We're going to tweak it so it's parameterized so that we can actually specify what file we want it to read. That's a very common functionality that you do with server scripts or server-side scripts. And so being able to read, being able to pass arguments or pass parameters into your node script gives you a lot of capabilities. Whenever we do npm install, that install is a command, that's an argument. Whatever we pass after it is an argument. Those are all arguments being passed to one specific script. Now that script may load other script or run other programs, but that is an example of passing parameters in. And we do -- save. That's a named parameter, for example. Okay. So in today's class, I want us to at least get how to pass parameters to scripts on the command line. We've been passing parameters, like we've done route parameters, right? I've done query string parameters. Command line parameters, we're going to try to also get to today. But first, let's start off with being able to specify a date range, right? And we're going to handle that. We're going to handle the date range filters on the database. So that will tweak our database query. Okay. And so let's talk about how that works. So our base endpoint, right? We're getting time series data is just time series, right? Does anyone remember what query parameters are? or query string parameters.
This is what we didn't. Come on.
Yeah, it's you know, like when when the client makes requests that have specific what should I say parameters. So instead of just requesting for a page, you request more specific. The specific words are failing me, but you request more specific it's dimensions, attributes. I don't know.
Right. Right.
So instead of saying, instead of asking for like a web page, you ask for a specific page on that web page,
right.
or you ask for a specific range of data.
Right. So query string parameters allow you to pass arguments, right? To pass arguments or predicates or filters or extra requirements to essentially pass. They're not quite configuration data, but they're configuration data as to what type of request or what type of how you want the server to handle that specific request. There are many different ways that query string parameters are used. One very common way that happens every day and we don't realize it is when you do a Google search. So if we come into Google here, and if you see this, then you realize that you can actually do Google searches by hand. So if I come to, let's find Google here, okay, and you look at this right here, you see that question mark there? That is the beginning of the query string. What's a query? A query is a question, right? So it makes sense that the symbol for defining the start of a query string is a question mark. Try to remember it like that. Connect query, question, question mark. So in a URL, once you have a question mark, everything that follows that question mark is a query string parameter. And they are key value pairs. Where else have we seen key value pairs in program?
JSON.
JSON objects, right? So in your query string parameter, yeah, sorry?
No, so I was just agreeing.
So your query string parameter is always a set of key value pairs. They are case sensitive. They're case sensitive in a lot of programming languages, okay, that deal with query string parameters. So it's very important to define your query string parameters in a manner where, it's clear how to use them. So if we look here, let me clear all of this and just go to google.com, right? Just clean. If I do a search for test, right? And I look in here, unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff right there. But if you look here, you see a query parameter called key plus test plus me. The plus is the equivalent of a space in the URL. Okay, that's how you do a space in URL. You can't put a space there. You have to do either a plus or %20. It's called URL encoding, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But you see that right there? If I come here and you see the results we have here. Now let me manually type in that query, right? If I do this, look at this. What I typed here, you see what's happened? It's right here in the search box. Okay. Now, if that's because I went straight to google.com test.me. if I did search here, I went to the search with that. Guess what? I get exactly the same search results as if I had searched for test me directly. That's because the server side that's processing this read the query parameters, and I use the specific parameter I uses for searching, which is the Q. And I provided it, so the key is the Q, the value is test me. Okay, so key equals value. That's how it is. And then you separate multiple key value pairs with the ampersand. So and something else and something else. Okay. So now we're going to create our REST endpoint, and we're going to build it so that it can accept queries like that, right? For data with specific date ranges. So what we want to do here is we want to be able to come to this and say time series, the start date equals something, right? And I would say, sorry, start date equals maybe 10, maybe 1/1/2020, right? And end date. I mean, is this clear? This is what we're trying to do. And we expect this to only return results in that date range. So if I do between 1 and maybe 2/29/2020.
Need to spell dates properly.
Yeah.
The second date is wrong.
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, I see that. All right. So I don't have the server running, so I have to kill it. It died waiting for me. All right. So this is the query we want to make. Right now, it still just returns everything, right? Because we're not using this query string parameters in any way. But this is what we want. So let's modify the endpoint and make it actually use those query string parameters to tweak our query. So right here, and let me expand this a little. Okay, there you go. All right, so here, this is our time series endpoint. That's our time series route. Now remember, query string parameters are on the query params property of the request, right? So we can say, we're going to use the destructuring assignment, right? So we say const start date end date equals, right, the query params. Who remembers what this does? Who remembers what this line does?
I think it's you go this time, Dapper.
No, so that allows us to take what people type in their browser,
Well,
and then feed it into that JSON object start date and end date.
Okay, not quite, but I want you to even forget about the user. Who cares? Let's even forget that we know what rect is.
Okay.
Right. What does this line do? Right. Assume you have no context. You don't know this is an express. You don't know anything about it. You can actually analyze that one line of code.
So my understanding of that line is it's a variable constant, which is a JSON object, and it's picking, and you're gonna pick it, and you're gonna assign the values of the objects to the requirement query params. If that makes any sense at all.
Yes, I understand how you're reading it. Unfortunately, that's not what that line is doing at all. And here's the reason. Here's the reason. If you think about it, the curly braces usually denote a JSON object, right? But you can't use that to name a variable. That's not a valid that's not a valid identifier. I'll mute you a little, that way you have a lot of background noise. But that's not a valid identifier. You can't have curly braces in an identifier. So that cannot be a variable you are naming with a curly braces. But that syntax is what we call a destructuring assignment. And the destructuring is happening on this. So what it's doing here is this object could be big and have a whole bunch of properties. This here is defining two variables, right? And assigning them the value of properties that match the identifiers. So this start date will automatically get the value of rec.queryparams.startDate. End date will get the value of rec.queryparams.endDate. Okay? And defining, so hold on. I'm going to clarify this. So defining this way is, and I explained this before, but I'll explain it again, is exactly, you get the same results as const start date equals rec.queryparams.startDate. Const end date rec.queryparams. Okay?
So it's basically shorthand.
It is. So this one line does exactly the same thing as these two lines. It is not just because it's shorthand, it's because you're also not repeating yourself so much. Let's say, for example, I decide to do something else and I decide to do maybe const params equals rec.queryparams, right? Because I want to perform some operations on params. Okay, if I decide to do this, guess what? I have to come to two lines to change this to rec.right. Sorry, hold on. Right? No, sorry. I have to do this. I have to come to both lines and change this to params.right, because I wanted to perform some operation on it. With this syntax here, I only have to change one place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also,
Also, I don't have to repeat start date on both ends and end date on both ends. I just define it here. So it's much shorter, much cleaner, much more manageable code. So I'll just show you the documentation for that. So it's JavaScript destructuring. Okay, it's called the destructuring assignment. It's a very interesting concept. It's really lovely. It's part of ES6, but it's a totally cool thing to do. All right, it's in here somewhere. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do here, and it works. It doesn't work just for objects. It works for objects and arrays. Okay, works for objects and arrays. Very, very powerful stuff. All right, so this way we can get those parameters from our query params. So let's do console.log start date and date. So we can see what that does for us here. Here. All right, let's refresh this. Oh, oh, did I call it query params? Request that query. Sorry. Now this is another benefit of doing it this way. It's this way. Query. Okay, but you see the error here. It says cannot destructure property start date of undefined. So let's try this again. Yeah. What?
Why can't it destructure it?
Because rect.query is undefined. Hold on.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. What am I doing? I am totally screwing something up here. This is a very basic thing. Let's see what's up here. So I spent most of the day writing PHP, so sometimes the context switching is a little bit of a, what did I do? Yeah, right there. Right the query. Right? That's right the query. I'm not still asleep. All right, there you go. Okay, so there I have my start date and my end date. Right there. Right there. Okay. So let me kill this. I don't need that. I don't need that. All right. So now that I have these two values, we're going to query the database by those two values. Okay. So what we need to do now, we can't use these as is, right? So we're going to need to convert them into proper date strings that MySQL understands. And what we want is we want to use this to define a predicate for our query. A predicate is when you specify requirements for the data, right? For example, you say select star from database table where. Once you use a where clause, the where is called the predicate. So you can say select all from people where gender equals female, so only select the female. Or where gender equals male, only select male. Or where age is greater than 40, only select people above 40. Or where age is less than 12, only select people under 12. So your where clause is the predicate. And that is what we're going to use here. We're going to select where the date is between the start date and the end date, right? So it is where the start date is less than or equal to the start date, or end date is greater than or equal to end date. So that gives us the two boundaries of our query. Okay. So we try to use our dates as is. So let's do this. Yeah. We're going to create strings for our predicate that we can append to our query string here. So we're going to say actually fancy. Okay, let me not do too much tricks with this. So just say const start query, right? Or start SQL equals date reported. The word date reported, right, is greater than or equal to actually this, right? Const and SQL equal date reported less than or equal to, yeah. Who remembers why we're using the question mark?
Query.
So we can insert values later on.
To parameterize the query.
Correct, to parameterize the query. Now, why do we parameterize the query?
To prevent SQL injection.
Yes, sir. And what is SQL injection?
To insert a SQL query into the URL or into the parameters.
Right, right. So it's to provide query or database commands like data and trick the database into executing commands, a hacker, essentially. So you have to parameterize. I mean, one good way of securing your queries is to parameterize them. And that way the database engine, it separates the SQL statement from the data used for the SQL statement, and the database engine will recognize that as data and not try to use it like it's SQL statement. So even if it's a very malicious SQL statement, it won't be executed to be used as data. All right. That's why we parameterize queries for security. And this is a best practice. Remember the rule: never trust data coming in from outside. Always act as if it's a hacker providing that data. Never trust data. Like never, ever, ever trust data coming in. So if it's data being provided in a URL, you never trust it. So they act like a hacker provided that data. Okay. All right. So here's our queries, right? And then what we want to do here. Now, what if the user only provides a start date but no end date? Or if they only provide an end date but no start date, right? We want our query to still work. So we want to only add these to our query if they exist. And if neither is provided, we want our query to remain unchanged, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use, what's the best way? So we're trying to say that only if they provide this, let's do something. What's the JavaScript construct that we use in that kind of
Conditionals.
scenario? Conditional. So we want to say that only if, right? We'll say if start date, right? In which case, if it is defined, so this is going to treat it as a truthy, which means if it's anything but 0 or false or empty, if it has a value, let's use it. Right, so say if start date, then we can say, yeah, rather than do this, I'm going to perform a trick here. I'm going to add this to an array, and you see why. Predicates.push. Okay. Now, can anyone tell me if this will work right now? Will this work? Will this line work?
I don't think so. You have to bring in the predicates function at the top somewhere.
Well, yes. So you're right. I haven't declared predicates. Predicates is not a thing, right? If I run this right now, if I try to run this right now, right? Look at that. And I run this right now, it's gonna fail, right? Predicates is not defined, which of course it isn't defined because I haven't declared it. So I can come here and say const predicates is an empty array, right? And so now I can do predicates.push, and I can do this as well for here. So here
You
I
might want
can
to fix.
say,
There's a spelling mistake, just in case, at the top.
yeah, I'll catch it. If end date, right? And then close it. So one practice that's also helpful is to open and close your blocks and then type a code in between so you don't forget to close your blocks. Okay, so I'll push this in there. And you said I had a spelling error on
A constant definition at the top for predicates, just above.
Line 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
what's the error? My spelling of predicates. Yeah. All right. There. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of why I highlighted it, and I can see that it wasn't highlighted. All right, so there. Now the other thing I also want to do is I want the values array, right? So values. Let's kill that. And here I want to push start date, right? And the same thing here. Values the push and date. What does push do?
Adds the value to the array at the end.
Correct. Correct. This adds, it adds an item, an element to the array. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now we've done this right here, right? And push only works on arrays. Okay, it's a method of the array prototype. Now, why is it that I can make these two constants, but I'm actually modifying them here? Does that make sense? Remember, if you try to change the value of a constant, you get an error. But in this case, I'm not going to get an error. Why is that?
Because at the top bit, you're just declaring them. You're not actually giving them a value. That's one.
Well,
so on 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 4.
No, I did give them value. I did give them one. I did give them value. So the thing with const is that with const, you must assign a value at declaration. You can't just declare a const and then give it a value later. Because a const, the value of a const cannot change after declaration. So you must give it a value. So how is it that I'm able to modify it later?
Witchcraft.
No, it's not witchcraft. Okay, so let me.
So what? Explain. Okay.
Yeah, we're not modifying those two. We're not changing what they are. They're both still arrays, and they're exactly the same arrays they were. But we are calling methods on the array that it uses. You know, so it's like, hey, this is a gray ball, right? If you put oranges in it, it doesn't stop it from being a gray ball. If you declared it as a gray ball, it's a gray ball. And that ball will accept whatever you put in it, but you can't change it from being a gray ball. You try to change it from being a gray ball to being a green ball.
So are you saying that the declaration we make on 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 4 is declaring it as an array and not saying what? Oh, okay. And then
declaring, yeah. So okay. you can use array methods to modify the contents of the array, but you can't change the array itself. It's still exactly the same array object. Like I said, it's still a gray ball, right? What's in it may change, but it doesn't change it from being a gray ball. It may become a dirty gray ball, but it's still the same gray ball, right? So you can put stuff in it, you can take stuff out of it. It's fine. That's what the ball was designed for. You can't change it from being a gray ball into a gray plate to throw an error because you specifically declared it to be a gray ball. So that's why you can declare it to the const and modify it. The same thing you can do with objects. You can declare an object as a const and set and unset properties on it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a let. If you do a let, that means you could change it from being an object to being a string, which could then break your code. So in this case, we know we always want this to be an array. So we do a const instead of a let because we don't want to accidentally have it change to a string or to an integer at any point in time. All right, so now we have these two. And we're now going to do one last thing. Predicate string, right, equals array, what's it, predicates dot length, right, it's greater than 0, that means there are predicates in there, right? We want to do space where, right, space and then predicate predicate the join. Okay. If not, let's make it an empty string. And then let's do all this before here. Okay. And then what we're going to do here is in here, we're going to insert the predicate string. Plus predicate string plus that. Okay. And rather than that, this is space. So if we don't have anything, it will just be a regular space. Our SQL will have nothing there. Right, it will just be a space. So it'll be COVID data group by. But if we have values, it's going to be where whatever group by whatever. Does that make sense? And this join here, remember, join is you join an array into a string with the do. This is our do. So let me do this. Let's console log these two. Console.log predicate string, right? So let me do it on the next line here. So that you can see both strings. That's their form. Super. Now the other benefit of doing this join here is that if I only have one item, there'll be no and. If I only have start date, no end date, there'll be no and. If I only have end date, no start date, there'll be no and. I'll only have and if I have both, which is perfect, right? I don't want to have to conditionally add an and. All right, which is why using an array and then joining it makes sense. So let's look at this. A server error occurred. Yes, that's fine because my query has bound parameters but no data. But if you look at it, look, this is our predicate string. Okay, and this is our query. Where it reported, you see that? So here's the SQL error we have. Parse error, you have an error in your SQL, whatever. You use near the question mark. There's a SQL error here. Okay. So let's add in our query parameters to our SQL, which is here.
Is that to do with the space you put in? No.
No. We'll solve that. We'll solve that. Don't worry about it. But I just wanted to show you how we've been able to smartly construct the query. And actually, If we come and try this again here, and I take out the query parameters, right? If I take out the query parameters, come on. Um, right, I didn't want to manually think about it. Time series, and I take this out from that, and I do this. Look at that, it actually works perfectly without the query parameters, because look at our query, it doesn't have the predicate in there anymore. Right? This is our query now. The predicate is empty. Before that, this was the query with the predicate. Okay, and now this is our query without the predicate. So let's go back to the one with the predicate. Let's refresh this. Okay. And that runs and it works, but it gives us an empty array. Right? Our predicates are fine. Well, not quite fine. The issue with them is that they have no I don't know why Chrome is messing up now. Okay, just leave it there. So the issue with our predicates is that our date format is not good for MySQL, right? So what we need to do is to format it, and then that way we can use this in our query. So we'll just quickly do that, and then we'll jump into the more interesting stuff. So we can get rid of this. We need that console log, see what that's doing. So in here, what we need to push into our values is not straight up start date. Let's do something like this, const s date. Oh, this is end date, so const e date. For new date, end date, right? And then what we want to push is a string that is in the format of e date that get full year, right? Plus, sorry, plus e date that get month, and these are methods. And this is get month plus 1, right? If you remember from the last one. And then plus, we need that divider again, plus e date dot get date. And that's what it is. All right. And so we want to do the same thing here. And we could copy this, paste this here, and say s date equal new. Okay, Who knows what's wrong with what I'm doing right now? Who can tell me what totally stinks about what I'm doing right now? There's something very smelly about what I'm doing.
But to me, you're repeating yourself too much.
Yes, I am repeating myself, and that totally stinks.
Yeah. I was going to say, surely there's a better way of writing that. I mean, I don't know any better way personally, but I'm just guessing.
You do know a better way. So I'm repeating myself, and that stinks. Do not repeat yourself. This is way too much stuff to copy and paste and start changing. Because now I have to come here and change every little bit here, right? No, you don't do that. What do you do instead of repeating yourself? How do you make reusable code?
Functions.
A function. Function. Which means I take all of this here. I take all this logic here, right? And I create a function. And I create a function by just saying function format date, right?
Yep.
And let's say date. And here, I paste my stuff, the code I want, right? And I return that formatted date. And so I can say date, you get full year plus date of get one plus date that get date, right? And once I do that, now I have a function, and here we want to say, actually, no, let me not do that. I'm not changing it to date. I'm going to change it to, I'll leave it as edate, right? But here, I'm creating my new object off of the date passed into it. Okay. Let me just clean this up so that it doesn't. Yeah. All right. So I've created my function here. And so instead of all that garbage I was writing here, what I'll just do here is I'll just do values.push, right? Format date, start date. And same thing here. I'll do values.push, format date, end date. And there you go. Now I'm not repeating myself anymore, right? All that complex logic is here. And so even if I get this wrong, I can fix it and fix it for everything, right? I can fix it and fix it for everything. But guess what? This is still awful. The reason I say still awful is because we're doing something like that. Where is it? Here. Right, we're doing almost the same thing here. I won't fix this right now, but who can think of how we can fix it and not have this code repeated at all in our application, have it in only one place? How can we do that? Anyone?
So you, right? I'll do something like we did with the connection bit. Create it in a separate script and then call it in as required.
That is exactly right. So what we would do is format date, right?
Can I just ask a question? surely, isn't there like a publish function for this? I guess is the word I'm looking for.
A publish. Oh, wait.
There most likely is, but we're trying to learn some things here.
No, isn't it? Oh, you mean something out there? Yes.
Somebody
there's
already
probably
done this.
Yeah.
There's probably a module out there that you can. Yeah, there's probably a module out there. You're right, and that's also a good way to think about it. Is Google it and see if it hasn't been solved yet, right? If it has, then just install the module. Now, something like this is actually relatively simple, right? So here we can do this. Right? Actually, even better, we can use a function expression. So we can say, we make it an anonymous function, right? Or we just say module dot exports equals that function equals a function. Okay, and right here we've taken it out, abstracted it, made it totally reusable, and so we can actually come in here now, and the same way, like Dr. said, the same way we imported connection, we can say const format date equals require and there, this will work. And we've now made it totally reusable, where we can actually also use it in this code or anywhere else. And we potentially have more scripts where we're trying to query the database and we need formatted SQL. So now that we've done this here, this looks right. We query this now. All right. Now we still don't have results yet. Right? We're still getting an empty. So let's see what our let's see what our data is looking like. So I just want to see what I'm going to dump values here. So console.log. Now later, when you get more advanced, you use what are called breakpoints rather than doing console.log. You set breakpoints. You probably noticed that in Visual Studio Code, where you can set a breakpoint, and the code will run up to that point and stop, so you can inspect the current value of values. But I'm using Vim right now, so all right. So let's try this now. Let's see what we have here. The values is undefined. Interesting. And why is it undefined? Because we're not returning. There's no return. That's why. So this needs a return. So if we refresh this now, boom. That's all. Okay. Now we have values 2021 1, 2022 29. Perfect. And if we look at our data here, it only goes as far as 229. We don't have anything beyond that. And if we change this date here, our end date to 329, right? Refresh that. Now we have, oh, I did a refresh, I didn't change it. If I change it to 329, that thing. Now we have data from 329. Okay. All right, so we're good now on the back end. It's giving us the kind of data that we need. Let's mess around with the front end. Before we jump out to the front end, any questions so far? Did you learn anything so far?
I did.
Yeah. So this, yes, splitting it out into a module, that's how you do it. That actually is how you do it. You repeat yourself in one file, you make a function in that file. You repeat yourself in two files, you make a module out of it. And it's correct. All right. That way you only have to manage that logic in one place. You can test the hell out of it if you want. Make sure it always performs perfectly. And that just helps the quality of your application. All right, let's take a 2-minute break and then we'll jump right into the front end. Well, no, we'll take a 5-minute break. So 7:15, we jump to the front end and put all these together. Okay? All right. See you in 5 minutes.